Hi, this is Sergeant Betsy Brantner Smith with the National Police Association, and this is the National Police Association podcast. I have a guest with me today. I've been trying to get on for literally for years, and he's busier than I am, but he's a friend of mine. We have a lot of mutual um, goals and things that we've been involved in this
Mhm.
profession, and so I finally got the chance to bring him on the show because you all need to meet him. Dr. Trevor, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It has been a while. We've known each other for a while now, and your long history of doing this, and man, we just couldn't catch up.
I know we finally get to do this, and we get to see each other a couple times a year.
Sure. Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that. But first and foremost, I got to ask you the question I ask every cop: why'd you become a cop?
I wish I could say it was for some nobility of saving the world, or honestly, I started becoming volunteering with EMS when I was 16. I actually finished my EMT in my senior year of high school when I was 17, and started as an EMT when I turned 18. And I did that for a couple of years, really enjoyed it. My plan was kind of stay in that. I really want to do pre-hospital medicine, and I made the mistake of riding along with a local police officer who was a friend of mine, and I thought it was way cooler. I thought it was a cooler job. So I really joined initially. Yes, I had some of those ideas of, wanting to help people and do good. Those always carried me through, but I also wanted to do cop stuff. I wanted to drive fast and pit people and take bad guys to jail and help victims and, carry a gun. I want to do the fun stuff. And it started out fun that way. Of course, you have to have a little more maintenance to drive through the hard times than that, but that's my real answer. I'll be honest. It was not a nobility. It was, this looks fun.
Now, I've seen pictures of you when you were a state trooper. And, I'm married to a state trooper, and y'all have that kind of look, right? Everybody, even other cops, when we get pulled over by the state police and we see y'all walking up with that hat and
Uh-huh.
all that stuff, we're intimidated. So, how did you go from that squared away young trooper
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the angry Viking therapist that you are now?
Yeah, and I'll make it even wider and crazier for you. So the agency I was with, we used to be split. There was the state police and then vehicle enforcement. We were split, and they were troopers, we were officers. Is just how we kind of separated the two, and different academies, so we could recall different things. And then we merged together, and I think they still keep some of the old school vehicle enforcement. I still keep some of the officer nomenclature, but so now here we had two agencies that were like that, right? Squared away, campaign hats, that would eventually merge together during my career. But yeah, even not as a quote unquote trooper, we were officers. We still looked that way. It was still that. So um, yeah, so I spent 15 years in uniform law enforcement, 20 total as public safety, with also being kind of EMS and dispatcher before turning 21. And to be perfectly honest, the towards the end of my career, that 15-year mark was not going well. I had really gone from, as I like to say, poster boy state cop. Most felony arrests in my units. I've gotten multiple awards for bravery in the line of duty. I really enjoy being a go-to guy. Sarge could call and get needed something done, we do it. Right, we just work over and get it done. And I really enjoyed the job. I really enjoyed it. And what I remember of those last couple of years when I try to think of stories is just how absolutely bitterly angry I was. I was angry at bosses, coworkers, civilians, family. I would just sit in my cruiser just mad. And I don't love that about myself. That's where I ended up, but that's where I was. And I would be sitting there just begging for something crazy to happen, like a stolen car going by at 120, shooting a gun in the air, because that was no emotion. I'll just go handle that. Right. So, it was kind of backwards. I should have been in the median having an okay day and watching to see if anything crazy happened. So, through kind of a series of definitely my own mistakes, letting my quality of work go, being very defensive to supervisors, and nothing illegal or immoral, but I definitely became a crappy employee. I was constantly written up. I was constantly angry. I was losing my family, losing my career. I think there was a big piece, if I have to be fair, not to lay blame, but that they didn't know what to do with me. They did not know that I was just going through a mess, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I was a mess, and because I just showed up and did the job. So Eventually, I would reach out for help. They didn't help in any way, shape, or form. I don't think they knew how. And, we didn't talk about mental health 15 years ago. So I don't think they knew how to help. And so I sought out help, and that was terrible. I went to two therapists that were horrible. I made me feel even worse. And so my career ended. It ended before I wanted it to. It ended without a pension. Did not qualify for medical pension here in Kentucky. We don't recognize mental health as a medical condition for pensions. So, and like everybody else, I hid all my physical problems forever, like we all do, because it makes you weak if you don't. So, uh, I was trying to figure out what to do with my life. I had no career, no skills, no education. And I was just finishing my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I was hoping it would help me for promotions one day while I was in. And I see that my school had a master's in professional counseling. And I honestly thought if I do that for a couple of years, maybe I'll figure out what the heck is wrong with me. Maybe I can help a friend out along the way. I did that, never wanted to go to school again. Ended up with a doctorate in counseling because this was becoming a career, becoming something I really wanted to get good at. I'm now working on my second PhD in trauma informed care. So that all led up to kind of opening my own practice and figuring out what the heck was wrong with me. And that along the way, figuring out that there was a lot of me's out there, a lot, maybe in differing degrees. Maybe they're in a place where they wouldn't admit it right now. And I don't think everybody gets to this horrible place, but I did. And I was, and a lot of my friends were, and a lot of my coworkers were. So it started as kind of a mission to fix myself, and it became, pretty cool career and my passion now. And as you said, you did see pictures of me back then. I was a very small, lean, clean shaven, bald headed guy for, 15 years. Towards the end, I started to get into powerlifting a little bit. So that changed me physically. And then, the hair and the beard come from not from a look, they come from my unwillingness to shave every day anymore. So it kind of became, I was doing my first PhD, and a professor asked something while he's writing on the board, and he turned around and said, "Who answered that question?" I'd answered a question, and somebody said, "The angry Viking looking dude over there," and it just kind of stuck. That became my nickname, and turned it now a trademark, the Angry Viking Therapist, and it's part of my online social stuff, and just I've kept it just to I don't practice pagan ways or anything, but I am full of Viking tattoos because it's kind of my thing, battle tattoos, but it's just a way to I just kept it as a way to stand apart, to be set apart from kind of the regular counseling world, honestly.
So when you think about this, 15 years ago, we didn't really talk about police officer mental health. That seems insane to people
Yeah,
hearing this now, because now
sure.
we talk about it. I don't think enough, but we're talking about it a lot more. I mean, did you truly feel like you were it? You were the only cop out there that had these emotions, these feelings, and this
Mhm.
anger, and you must have felt like an island.
100%. An island is a great identification of that. Um, we weren't talking about it. We were starting to talk about things like PTSD. I wasn't really sure that's what I was dealing with. I couldn't point to an event that was a problem, which is what I thought PTSD was, or this kind of traumatic stress was. I was just in a mess. I was just in a mess and was a mess, and absolutely felt 100% alone. And that is a very hopeless, helpless feeling and a not good enough feeling. So, what do we as type A folks tend to do? Double down, right? We just work harder, work faster, do more. And while I will always be a hard worker and somebody who prides himself in his work ethic, I was definitely doing worse. I was definitely doing more damage to myself and my own family. And I was kind of okay with feeling on that island. I've always felt through different careers or even maybe different parts of life. I'm fine being an island. I'll go take care of this. I'll handle it. You don't want to? I'll go handle it. I'm okay with that. And I think a lot of type A folks are, right? I'll just suck it up and deal with it. But it wasn't until later that I figured out the damage I was doing to a family, right? People that I loved. It was years later that I was doing this. And my wife had gone to a conference with me and described that she and my daughters used to walk around on eggshells about what was going to make dad mad next. And I've never laid a hand on my wife or kids. Won't do it. Absolutely will not do it. I've seen it change relationships. But I've definitely thrown some chairs and punched walls and screamed when I didn't need to. And they've never been in physical danger from me, but the actual and the symbolic parts of your brain don't know the difference between each other, and symbolic is enough, right? Your perception's enough. And that was heartbreaking to me, to hear that they were walking around on eggshells while not being in physical danger. So I wasn't just hurting myself. I wasn't just dealing with it myself. And there were some people I think were trying to guide me in the right direction, maybe blindly, dealing with their own stuff. But oh yeah, helpless and hopeless is exactly what I would have called it at the time. And if you'd have told me those words 30 years ago when I started this journey, I'd have laughed at you and called you weak. But that's exactly how I felt.
What do you see now, 5 years almost post George Floyd and the riots of
Mhm.
2020 and the vilification of our profession? On the mental health side, what are you seeing in our brothers and sisters?
The one thing that I think people don't research or talk about well, because we are talking about trauma a little more, we are talking about mental health, we are being a little more proactive with it. But the way we're still talking about it in the ranks is, oh, you've had a traumatic event, a shooting or a kid call or a bad wreck and that's what messed it up for you. I definitely have some events that I recall and are a little emotional. When I speak, I talk about a fiery wreck that I was at that I know probably, chipped away at some of my problems. But I still, to this day, even 11 years into doing this, after actually dealing with those traumatic events, I still can't point to a thing. What we're not talking about very well is the cumulative effects of all this, right? I wasn't in Minneapolis when it happened. And in fact, for that example, I was out of law enforcement. But, um, you know, um, the Missouri incident, right? Years before that, that affected my career and the individuals I was around and how we were perceived. So, um, it definitely grew faster 5 years ago. Social media and people talking about things they didn't know anything about pushes that along, of course, news included, the media included. But we don't talk about the cumulative effects of all that. And back in 2019, I did a pretty extensive study with over hundreds and hundreds of cops, over 4,000 data points, and what I looked at was operational stress versus organizational stress. And operational stress is the job, right? The handcuffing, the late nights, the never eating well, the missing stuff, the fighting with people, the court. And organization wasn't necessarily admin, but it was a lot of admin. But it was just the organization and care for policing as a whole. And that was, my administration doesn't back me. I don't feel like they'll back me in use of force. They don't care about us. We don't have the equipment we need. We're dealing with these cumulative things adding up. Well, as you can imagine, the mean or the average of those were kind of in the middle, because I had brand new cops and I had cops that have been doing it 40 years in this study. So it was in the middle. But there's a way that you can mathematically look at the change of this over time. And what I saw was, on a 120-point scale, operational stress, the job went down over 25 years. And that makes sense to those of us that have done it a long time. You don't think about the handcuffing and the driving fast anymore, and court just becomes a thing. That went down about 25 or 27 points over a 25-year career. And that number is going to be significant in a second. Organizational stress, like not the scary part of the job, the organizational stress went up 67 points in 25 years. It went up 3 times what the job was going down. And I'm not blaming that only on admin. It's the organization and feeling, there's a lot of different things in there. It's just not the scary parts of the job that we think is wearing us down, right? That was actually going down over 25 years, with the exception of some traumatic events, maybe. It was the organization, what people think as a whole, the long-term effects of the cumulative stress and the lack of support. That is what is causing us problems. And what started that study was, I had read a statistic that The average years of service that an officer was taking his or her life was 20 years of service. And that didn't make sense to me, right? 5, when you're dealing with a lot of stuff and your family's changing and you're in financial strain. But 20, you're almost done, or you are done, or you can be done in a lot of places. You're at least on that last, downhill slide. Why was it then that officers were taking their life in rampant numbers? And I knew it had to be more than just traumatic events because we all have them. It was the cumulative stress, the cumulative stuff that you deal with. That's what was adding up over 25 years. So I think that's increased over the last 5 years. And I think if you look over time, it will increase and not increase. If I dare, I say decrease, but increase and decrease over 5, 10 year stints. We can look back on our 2 decade plus career and see that it was different than when it started, and vice versa. But I think that's probably, I would argue that it's increased. That statistic alone of 67 that went up for in the way that I studied it has probably even increased in the last 5 years because we're so inundated with the negativity, right? And we're so inundated with the comments and the police experts that think they're experts. And so I think that's more of a problem. I think that's increased. You talked about the 5 years ago. I think that's probably increased. I think there's a pendulum to a lot of it, but man, this one's slow, you know?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And not just for current cops, but I'm guessing you see a fair number of retirees, right?
Hmm.
Because of that cumulative effect. And then plus that the retirement process that we all look forward to, right? For the whole at least second half of our career. And then when we do it, that's stopping. If you don't have something else to occupy your mind, to give you
Hmm.
that sense of mission, all that, that's difficult, isn't it?
It is. Purpose is a huge word to me, and I don't think you have to have the perfect one. And I don't think that your retirement or your life, if you didn't start out with purpose, I don't think it has to be Superman level saving people, right? Your purpose can be your grandkids or travel or working the door at Lowe's, like just having something. Now, obviously, those of us that have been in public safety or military, we tend to look for bigger purpose afterwards. But I encourage everybody that's in just in their own rut, not even public safety, but just in a rut in their life or retiring or changing. You got to have purpose. You got to have that meaning. And again, it doesn't have to be astronomical. But with meaning is what's going to get you through the hard parts, right? Meaning is what's going to push you through. And we are meaning people. I didn't start. I said earlier, I didn't start law enforcement for meaning, although maybe there was a little bit of it in there. But eventually, that's what carried me through those hard years. At the end, was this was the right thing to do, and I'm going to go do a good job at it. And that was the meaning. So I absolutely think that purpose after, whether it be retirement or where somebody's in a rut now, meaning, purpose, and that comes from different things. It comes from all different things, but I absolutely think it's one of the most important things that you have to continue forward in your life.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Trevor, you and I are both involved with an organization called the Wounded Blue, and you
Mhm.
are actually our clinical director. I sit on the board. And tell people a little bit about the organization and your role in it.
So the organization is a national nonprofit for injured officers to help injured officers, and that could be physical injury, could be mental, could be some financial issues, but it's for injured officers. And one of the things that was born out of, and I want to speak for the president, Randy Sutton, but I've been with him since the inception of this many years ago. And it was born out of we were actually getting better at taking care of cops' families when they were killed in the line of duty. It's not a great thing. We don't always do it right, but we do it. We make a little bit of bigger deal out of it. We try to help. We weren't doing anything for the people that were still trying to work or just recently hurt. Some agencies, absolutely. I travel all over the nation and talk about public safety stress. Some agencies absolutely get it right. Most of them don't, right? It's just not ingrained in us that way about the injury part. You're supposed to get better and come back to work. So sometimes that doesn't happen. So my role in that, as you said, with the clinical director, I'm obviously on the mental health side. I don't do a lot with the finance or the physical injury part. And what we have is a peer teams or a peer team nationwide, and these are all officers, either current or former officers. Most of them have gone through their own physical or mental issues, and spouses. We have some spouses on there too, public safety spouses, and it is a peer connection. It's not, it's not psychotherapy. We don't in any way intend to replace that. It's very important. It's what I do for a living, but what I know is that sometimes what you need to hear is that the other person on the other end of the line understands. They may not know yours, but they understand. They have some skills and some training and some experience to help with you being in the middle of this mess, because that's when people call us. They don't call us to check in, right? Just like in law enforcement, they don't call us to let us know things went okay today. They call us at their worst. That's okay. That's what we're used to. But that peer team provides an ability to have a connection when you feel helpless, hopeless, and not good enough. And those are words I used them a little earlier. Those are words that I thought I was going to have to change when I started talking to public safety and type A individuals and high achievers, CEOs, and because I was like, you call me helpless and hopeless in a bar, it might not work out well for you. I'm a tough guy, right? But every time I've used those words, that when you're at your worst is because of life events that have left you feeling helpless, hopeless, or not good enough, and that's what's being re-triggered today. That's the feeling. It's not the event. It's not the thing. The thing is the thing. The thing can't give us an emotion, but it's that helpless and hopeless and not good enough. And again, I was going to change that years ago, but what I've noticed over the last 11 years, that everybody I've said that to that's hurting says, oh yeah, that's exactly how I feel when I'm at my worst. 100%. That's it. Right. And you can start to see a little bit of a connection, and maybe psychotherapy is warranted. Maybe a step up in care is warranted. But I'll tell you, even as somebody who makes a living as a psychotherapist, I think I encourage agencies all over the nation, peer teams, take care of 80% of your problems. It's whether it's debriefings, whether it's just somebody they can call. How many times have we been in a rough spot, and we scooted up window to window with a beat partner that we trust and just kind of said what we were dealing with, and they said, "Oh, wow, that's a lot, man. I feel for you. I understand because I've dealt with something similar," and we feel so much better, right? The issue may
Mm.
not be fixed, but it's just knowing that you're not alone on this island, like you talked about before, and knowing there are some solutions out there, and knowing like, okay, so I'm not crazy. I got some stuff going on, right? That's what peer teams do best. And it sounds like it's surface level stuff, but it's not. It's not. And so that's my role at Wounded Blue. Of course, I also speak as you do, typically at the summit, and do some trainings and stuff. So that's my role there.
It's so important when we talk about peer support. And I've heard other people say, well, you don't need formal peer support, you just all go out and have a beer and you'll feel better. And and I have learned over the years that that's just not true. Well-trained peers in our profession truly work miracles. Your peer
Mhm.
team is extraordinary at what they do. And they don't just help other people, it really helps them, right? To be a part of the team.
100%. Yes. Well, it helped me, right? Like learning all this. Now, it took me a long time to get better because I had to figure out what was going on up here. What's the neurological and biological part of this that I can affect? What are the processes up there that I can affect to make this stuff better, right? It took me a long time. I've been very fortunate to do some very extensive and individual training at places like the Albert Ellis Institute in New York. I did an associate fellowship there where they created the type of therapy that I do. I've been very fortunate to train with some some experts in the field about somatic types of therapy like EMDR. So that specialize in military and public safety. So it took a lot of years to really put all the pieces together, and I still do. I still learn. Like I said, I'm in my second doctorate now. I'm still constantly learning. Um, I don't think everybody else needs to wait 10 years, to put it together. I'd like to do it in a much more rapid pace than that. And so, yeah, it helped me too, right? Which was kind of the point of that comment. I had to fix me first. I had to fix me first. And not only did that help me and my family and those around me, but it also gave me the avenue of, yeah, I know what's going on here. Like, let's work on this, you know?
Yeah.
So I also get what I call borrowed credit. I don't take it lightly. I don't think you have to have been a cop to be a good therapist for cops. I don't think you have to have been in the trenches in order to be good as a therapist for, and it's not just cops, right? It's linemen and it's CEO, high stress CEOs, and it's people that are dealing with high stress and crazy events. That those are my people, right? So I don't think you have to. I think there's all good therapists out there, but when somebody does come in to my office or they contact me online, I do get an honorable borrowed credit of this dude's been there,
Right.
So I don't know your shooting. I don't know your kid call. I don't know the stress of the business that you have to run. I don't know your crappy boss, but I know those things, right? I've been in those things, knee
Right.
deep in them. So on both the business and or business and public safety world. So it has absolutely helped me and does help them, to your point.
Absolutely. Dr. Trevor, where can people find out more about the Wounded Blue, the Survival Summit, and of course, you? Where can they find you and follow you?
Yeah, so the Wounded Blue is thewoundedblue.org. Pretty easy to find. If you search it, you'll come across it. It's a rapidly growing program. We do have a summit, which she was just alluding to, a survival summit in late September this year, I believe, in Vegas. We've done it a couple different places. We tend to stay around Vegas. It's the convention capital of the world. It's easy to get people there. So it is 3+ days of people that realize what's going on in law enforcement. And most people there have been through something and want to help and help themselves, right? It's a great 3 days. I see people so massively
Mhm.
changed after being there, being around like-minded people, being around driven people. Sometimes it's nice to get back to your old unit, and be around the people that think like you. For myself, the websites are, they go to the same place, theangryvikingtherapist.com, or what I do online is called the Neurotrauma Project. So the neurotraumaproject.com, you can find me there. Social wise, which is where, of course, I update the most information. You can search Dr. Trevor Wilkins or the Angry Viking Therapist on any of those. The Instagram is DR, so Dr. Trevor Wilkins, just all one word. That one probably gets the most updates. It's the easiest for me, but I'm pretty easy to find in the LinkedIn's, the Facebooks, any of those. But those are the most prevalent. The
Awesome.
website and the Instagram.
Awesome. Dr. Trevor, I knew you'd be an amazing guest. We can't thank you enough for spending time with us today. And if you'd
Of
like more
course.
information about the National Police Association, visit us at nationalpolice.org.
Every day, the brave men and women of law enforcement put their lives on the line to keep us safe. But they need our help to continue their mission. Activist politicians, progressive prosecutors, the ACLU, and the rest of the anti-police forces receive millions in donations from extremist pro-criminal elements like George Soros and woke corporations. The National Police Association is fighting them in courts around the country, including the United States Supreme Court, defending officers who are being attacked for doing their jobs. Additionally, the National Police Association works year-round to pass tough-on-crime legislation to put and keep criminals behind bars. Consider going to nationalpolice.org and donating to keep us in the fight. Together we can win. That is nationalpolice.org.